Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are reading one of the biggest selling books of all time, comic books. I want to say this was over 3 million comics or something like that.
Wow.
I don't know the first issue of this. It is one of the longest running series of all time that's not Marvel or DC. It is currently at issue 335, I believe, because I am buying them. And
Because he became a late blooming fan.
yes, and that's why we're reading Spawn.
Well, that's why this was picked.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. That's why it was in our Patreon poll. This was our Patreon winner.
Yeah,
Patreon
it was.
poll winner.
We noticed there was like an overlooked character because, we read a lot of DC, a lot of Marvel, well, more DC than Marvel, and a lot of Image stuff. But we've never read the original Image stuff. We've never read Youngblood. We've never read Wildcats, and we've never read Spawn or Savage Dragon.
Savage Dragon.
So, that's the OG 1992 original class. It's also the 30th anniversary of Spawn and all those original books. So for those of you who don't know, I should say first, also, this was a Patreon member pick. So thank you to our Patreon supporters, Hoku and Otaku Mike. Shout out to you guys. We very much appreciate it, but we had a poll for a bunch of characters that we haven't really done books on before, like Birds of Prey, Hawkman, Deadman, and Spawn won. And so that's kind of cool. I know I realized just now that I said that we all had all DC books and then Spawn. So it's like
That's fine. Matt's trying to make this a DC only podcast.
I'm not trying
to make me
I just
a
want
DC
to read
fan.
more DC stuff. I did make you a DC
You did, but
fan.
I just mean in general. You're like, you want me to also start being like, yeah, Marvel sucks.
No, I don't think Marvel sucks. I just don't like them as much as DC. So anyway, So had not read this before, correctly?
No, my only knowledge of Spawn is going to be the sweet action figures from the 90s, and then the absolutely breathtakingly amazing 90s Spawn movie.
Oh yeah. We don't talk about that.
No,
we will.
No,
We'll
we
be
will.
talking about
Because
that.
I will say, after reading this, I was like, oh, there's some things in that movie now that I'm like, because I just rewatched it not that long ago because my wife had never seen it. And now looking back on it, she hated it. It was pretty horrible. But there's things I remember fondly from it, and I would quote.
Yes.
Specifically John Leguizamo as the clown.
Yes.
And looking back after reading this now, I was like, oh, well, there are a couple things in that. They're actually spot on. They're right. Him being one of them.
Yes.
And then there's a lot of crap.
Yes. So before we get into it,
Yes.
if you would like to vote like the Patreons did for this book, we do our members get to vote for one of the podcasts each week. Each month, and we will read one of the books that wins. So.
And since this month is we're in the spooky month, and we're not doing 13 comics this month.
No,
you can check out that awesome
Never
series
again.
that we did, but that was a lot of work. But we're doing all spooky titles this month, and this month for our poll, we're going to be doing new horror books. So this is going to be all newer horror comics that have
within
come
3
out,
years.
like the last couple
within
of years.
3
Yeah.
years, yeah.
So definitely check it out. Become a Patreon member. www.patreon.com/PlaneTrainComicBooks.
All one word.
All one word. Anyway, so let's get into this.
Yes. So as this was your first foray into the comics. I have never read the comic until like 6 months ago. Mainly because when I was working at the comic book store in 2007, 8, and 9, it was 2007, 8, and 9, Spawn was a joke. Like at my comic book store, I'd be like, "Oh, is Spawn good?" And they're like, "It's fucking lame." It was just bullshit. Basically, it was trash comics. Todd McFarlane's a good artist, but other than that, there's no reason to even look at it. And so I never gave it a chance. I mean, I saw the movie when I was a kid, and I thought that was pretty badass. I think I saw it probably on TV or something, like the edited version. But there was a lot of stuff I thought was cool in that movie, like the cape and the chains and all that stuff. I was totally like a 90s Image kid, except I didn't read any of those. But like I was not reading the comics. But whenever I look at the art from that time, if I look at Rob Liefeld's art from 1992, if I look at Todd McFarlane's art, I'm like, oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
Like I'm so drawn to it. I don't know if it was the crazy neon colors and weird shapes, like on the Saved by the Bell theme or something that, all kids from our generation, even if they didn't watch it, like had that burned into them. So like, I don't know if it's just the aesthetic sensibilities of that time period transferred over into their art. And that's what made like a lot of the stuff going on, like all the imagery and whatnot. But it really connected with me as a kid. Just seeing the images, like knowing what Spawn was, and then like seeing, I know I saw like Silvestri art for sure.
Oh yeah.
Who did Witchblade and the Darkness and stuff when I remember.
Oh yeah,
seeing that.
all Forbidden comics. I do remember seeing those and being like, I'd like to read that, and my mom would be like, no.
Yeah, I bet you would. You son of a bitch.
Well, I was gonna say one thing I think about you made me think is when I was younger. I remember when that Spawn animated show on HBO came out, and I was like, I want to watch this, and my folks were like, hell fucking no, you're not watching.
Yeah, that's pretty graphic.
So
it is literally this comic, but like animated, so it's worse than that. But it's if you are interested in the animated show, it is on HBO, and it is fantastically introduced by Todd McFarlane himself, and he's like, what would you do if you like, he's got his weird Canadian almost accent, and it's crazy, and I don't know. He doesn't have a very good like narration voice, but he just did it. It was like I love it. I'm a fan that he did it. But then the series itself is very, very well animated, and it's I think it's like the first. I mean, it's pretty much this first arc that's in it, and then a little bit more. And it does a pretty good job, I say, of like a cartoon from back then that's translating comics.
Nice.
It's not as good as Invincible was, but that was last year. So you can't. You gotta like give it in the time period it was made. You gotta give it some props for that. But so we'll just start off. I will also say for Spawn, it was a joke. And when I was at the comic book store, you could get a Spawn #1, which they printed, like I said, millions of, $5, $10. Good fucking luck finding a #1 for any kind of that price for like a good copy of it. Same with any of the. I could have bought all the issues of Spawn at the beginning that were like, it's $2 for #2 through 80. Like none of them were rare because it's just. I mean, they were rare, but like no one cares about Spawn in 2006 or 7. So I could have bought them, and at a good price, and just had them. Now it's like every issue from 1 to 80 is $50 or more.
Oh wow!
So it's like,
what brought it to what brought it to like that popularity again?
So big nostalgia bump from all the kids my age, all the people my age that now have money and are like, oh, I want to buy stuff from when I was a kid, and then Spawn or Todd McFarlane himself decided like at issue 300, I'm doing like this big event where Spawn is gonna like split or is gonna have the main title, and it's going to have 3 other side books going on as well. Gunslinger Spawn, King Spawn, and The Scorch, which is like a team book of Spawns. And that's when I started reading it. Like
I remember when you did that one.
And I was just like, wow, this is fucking good. Like I was blown away because I'm like, let me just try this thing. I think I read it. I read the 318 was like this is like the big event you could jump on right here and you'll know what's going on from here on out. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just read that for the review YouTube channel. And I did that, and I liked it. I was like, I don't understand everything that's going on, but I feel like there's a lot of passion and energy in this, and really good art. Every issue has amazing art. It doesn't matter what's going on in the story. There's always an amazing artist on Spawn, which is very hard to come by in modern comics nowadays. Like it's like all the Jobber comics. The Jobber comics used to be like amazing artists that were like, I just do like the Marvel standard stuff, or and then every now and then you'd have a freak like Todd McFarlane come and do Spider-Man, and it would blow up even bigger.
Yeah.
Now it's just like I can draw stick figures and, they're drinking coffee at a cafe for 4 pages. And, this is like action packed from, page 1 to page 20 or whatever, 22 and of each issue. And the colors pop. It's so vibrant. Everything's there. Even the story, which is pretty thin in these first couple issues, is like, I'm in it. I'm there. Like, it's fun. I'm having a good time. I want to figure out what's going on. So we will start it. We'll go through it. But I just wanted to say, like, this is not, I wouldn't say underrated, but it's not fairly maligned. I will say that. I enjoyed this. If you're going into it with the right mindset of, this isn't a fucking Vertigo book that's all like artsy and shit. Like Neil Gaiman didn't write this first arc or anything. Now, I don't know if you know this, but after the issue that this book ends with, Frank Miller writes the next one. Neil Gaiman writes the one after that. Alan Moore writes the one after that.
For Spawn?
For Spawn.
What?
Yes, and we will talk about why certain things are in this volume that set up things in those volumes. So
holy crap. Okay, yes. I'm excited to know about that. Wow.
Yes. They only wrote one issue, but
still.
So what happened was this book came out and people were like, hey, it's a little thin on the story, Todd. You guys have amazing art. And they were getting criticized by Marvel and DC for having shitty stories and really good art. That's all that anybody cared about. And so Todd was like, fine, you don't like my story? I'm going to hire the best fucking writers there are and put them in my book or on my book. And like, I think he does it more than once. He gets Dave Sim, who wrote Cerebus, to write as well for I think like the first 10 or something like that. And then one of the books, like you had literally Frank Miller, Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore, Dave Sim, in some kind of order like that. And then later on in issue 15 and 16, he has Grant Morrison come in and write. He's got all these people writing that are like top writers of, that time period.
Yeah.
And then Alan Moore went to go write a bunch of stuff for them. He wrote the Angela miniseries and the Violator miniseries. Alan Moore writing a Violator miniseries, which is, and this will all be in context of when we go through this book, which we're going to do right now. So the book starts with, a badass cover, I got to say. And it just throws you in it. Like Spawn has already come back to Earth from hell. We don't get any setup on who he was or anything at this first couple pages. But you just know, like, oh, he's here now. What is now? We don't know. And he's come back and he's in an alley and he doesn't know why he's there. A lot of this book is him being like, why?
Yeah.
Who? Where? Like, yeah, he just doesn't understand, like, why he's back or who he is. He doesn't remember anything about himself.
Very brooding. Very, yes. Very, very, like almost Batman-esque.
It's like Batman if Batman got amnesia and he's like, why am I wearing this cape? What am I?
Why am I so badass looking?
Yeah, why am I so buff?
Fighting? What's going on?
Exactly. How do I have these reflexes? Okay, so, and then we get this awesome trope. And this trope is in every Spawn comic that I've read. Well, it still isn't. I don't know if it's in every issue, but it is still played in it, and it's the same 3 people.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
So the trope is...
Do they get older?
Yes, they do.
Okay,
and there's
great.
3 screens, like TV screens of different news reporters from different channels, and they're all giving their take on the same event. So the first one is like CNN, but it's actually like, it's called something else later on because I guess they didn't want to get sued by CNN. So they're like, it's CMN or whatever. And like, then there's a guy who's just on like My View On 2, which is like a public access network, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Because this dude, I think Todd McFarlane called Alex Jones.
Yeah.
I'm almost 100% because he literally says the same shit that Alex Jones says.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know, 8 years before Alex Jones had InfoWars or any of that shit.
I kind of felt like that's what the character.
But it's before that,
before,
so I don't understand how he called it so good. This dude is still in it, and he's always on. Now he's on, like, you can see he's got his like backdrop in his house where he's filming these on the internet or whatever. So he doesn't even have like a news channel or anything. And then there's like an E guy that's like entertainment news where he's always just commenting on like fashion and stupid shit that doesn't matter about the story, but like it's just kind of funny to get his input on it. So we find out that someone named Lieutenant Colonel Simmons,
Al Simmons,
yes, Al Simmons, has died, and there's like a big ceremony for him, a big send off, full gun salute. He was loved by his country, did lots of missions. But then also we see the Alex Jones guy's like, we heard he did like covert ops and he was not fully, like the government was using him, and not that he was bad, just the government using him is bad.
Yeah,
the frogs are gay.
There's a big cover up here.
Yeah, exactly. They're turning the frog gay.
Yeah.
And then of course the newscasters saying like he looks great, or like his wife Wanda had like a great dress on, like that kind of stuff. So we learned that Lieutenant Colonel Al Simmons had, he was in the military. We don't know that he's Spawn yet, but he is Spawn. It's a spoiler, whatever. And you would know that if you saw the movie, because it's the movie. And then he's got a wife named Wanda. Now, John, I guess you did know this because you saw the movie.
Yeah.
You knew that Spawn was black, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I know. There, that little sub thing that happens in this was really...
We'll get into it. But yeah, so we find out that, like, the memories that Al Simmons remembers are... He knows he had someone that he loved. He doesn't quite know who it was. He remembers there's a guy that he hates, but he doesn't know who that guy is. He just sees like flashes of a face of his wife and this guy named Wynn that he hates, who was played by Charlie Sheen in the movie.
Yes.
And then like he knows what he looks like. Like, so we get like, oh, okay, he was some kind of something. He was special. He's an American flag, hoorah, whatever. And then, but he remembers dying, and that's kind of like the main thing. And then he remembers like a deal he made for that love, but he doesn't know who the love is, and he doesn't like he sold his soul for her, and he kind of remembers that, but he doesn't quite remember everything. So he's getting like flashes.
Yeah.
And then here's the thing I was going to ask you about. So there's something in these Spawn comics that I never understand when I look at them in the comic. There is a power meter.
I looked it up. Yes.
Okay, you looked it up. Okay.
Because I was like, what the fuck is the... So I thought they were dates at first, and I was like, but there's too many numbers.
Yes.
And
So there's like, just randomly on this page, is the first time we see it, there's just a thing that says 9999, which if you play like RPGs or Final Fantasy and stuff, that's like the top health percentage you can get, right? So, so this is his health or his power counter.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, he still has the power counter in now, like in the issues I'm reading now, and it's not 0 or close to. So I'm like, how?
Maybe he must like get a health a pick me up along.
There is, I know for sure it does run out at some point, because there isn't so the lore is when this health meter runs out, the apocalypse happens.
His necroplasm.
So his necroplasm, which is his power.
Sorry, I looked that up, and I got a wealth of knowledge in like 3 sentences about what that was.
I'm sure that was very informative.
Yes.
Yeah, you just download it like the Matrix or something.
But yeah, basically.
So this is a necroplasm power counter. At some point in time, I think around issue 200, they do the apocalypse where it reached 0 and something. I haven't read any of that though, so I don't know. But like that's what I heard, that like it does go down to 0, but then somehow he comes back and it's restored.
Yeah.
And also apparently he is not Spawn the whole time. Apparently, I think after issue 200 or whenever that whole storyline with the apocalypse, he does die fully, and some other guy takes over as Spawn.
Oh, wow.
Who's like a biker or something, I guess. Because now he's another character in the new stuff that I'm reading. But they're like, I know what you went through because I was also a Spawn. So it's like, okay. So, yeah, but somehow Colonel Simmons comes back and...
Huh. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know all of it. I just know a little bit like that. But yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. I'm like, John's going to read this and be like, what the fuck is this?
What are these numbers
that
keep popping up? Yeah.
So yeah, and it's on like every page almost. Like literally anytime he does any kind of power move, it's like 89998. Like, it's like 9956. Like, just like, okay, this is and that's the other thing. It goes by real quick. Like he'll do one thing and it'll be like 8,000. And you're like, what? So what? Like, how fast is this going to go down? This whole first issue is like him trying to remember who he is.
Who am I?
Doing very cool poses in an alley. Like standing on top of buildings and stuff. We also are introduced to a group of 2 guys who are detectives named Sam and Twitch. They are big thing. Like I don't want to say big things. But they're big side characters in the main Spawn comic, and they actually have their own branch off series called Sam and Twitch. I think that has like 12 issues or maybe a little more than that. And they're detectives. What's going on in the city is someone is going around ripping out the hearts of mobsters and just bad guys in general. And this is at the same time that Spawn is going around kind of pretending to be a hero, because that's what he's like. I guess, you know, I have some power. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, so I'll just help people out. So.
Yeah, like some ladies like screams in an alley, and he's like, "I'm here!" And I mean, he beats up the
guy trying to. He doesn't know why, but he's like, "I'll just do that in the meantime because I'm a good guy, right? I think so, at least." Yeah. So yeah, we learned that there's someone ripping out hearts, and some people think that this caped character is the one doing it. This Spawn character. They don't know his name, Spawn, but also we should describe Spawn for those of you who have not seen him. Spawn looks a lot like Venom, but if Venom had some like red, you know, highlights and stuff, and
and a like gigantic red
cape,
vampire Doctor Strange cape.
Yes,
and also
that always grows way bigger than it should be able to. It's very much as big as you need it cape. You know, it could be a circus tent at one time. It could then fold up and put it in your pocket next time.
With the addition of some biker Lobo chains.
He definitely is a fan of Judas Priest from his garb. So one thing that's funny, if you ever watch Todd McFarlane talk about like any videos of him from this time period drawing Spawn, he's like, kids love chains, bud. Like, you know, like kids love chains and spikes. Like that's all they care about.
Hey, that's true too. I remember.
He ain't wrong.
Wallet chains were huge.
I still like this. And also you get pouches.
Yes.
He's got leg pouch, thigh pouches.
What is this Hellspawn need pouches for?
I don't know, but he's got them.
He's got his little energy like sticks or
now they
like
do go into why he needs guns later on, but that's for issue 6. Okay. So but like at first he just has it. And also something that's different in the movie and later on in the comics, because the ones I'm reading now, this is not the case. His first costume is actually a costume. It's not like part of his skin or whatever. Okay. Like it doesn't grow back. Like in this, he has to pull off his mask. He has to pull off his gloves. He also has a nose, which is really weird in this first. He hasn't quite got the design down or something. So he's got like from far away, he doesn't have a nose. But then whenever he's really close up on the face in the mask, you can see like the nose jut out pretty big. And I'm like, it looks weird with a nose.
Yeah.
Just take that nose off. It's way cooler without the nose. So yeah, he's got like the Venom, like white around his eyes, you know, like that, but no big mouth.
Green glowing eyes.
Yeah, green glowing eyes. Really good design. Yeah. I feel like.
Yeah, like seriously, if like you want to sell something to a kiddo, like that is an image that you could show a like 10 to 15-year-old. Like, man, look at this awesome like
5-year-old, sir. I was 5 when that came out.
Oh, okay, well, in general,
6. I was 6.
Okay.
I mean, I never read, but I definitely knew what the fuck it was.
Oh man,
I was
that's
like,
cool.
I want to read it. Why won't my parents let me read this? Come on.
Yeah, you know they didn't read it either.
Yeah. No, of course not. Although they would not let. I mean, there's literally like on the next page there's an attempted rape scene, so I'm sure they wouldn't let us read it. But yeah, so once again, like we said, Spawn doesn't really know why he's here, but he's figured I got superpowers, so I'll help people out. So he sees a woman that's about to get raped by a bunch of guys. Well, she's robbed. We're gonna get robbed at first, and then they're like, let's have some fun with her, and they like start ripping off her clothes. There's no like nudity or like hardcore violence in this. That's not cartoony. That's the other thing about like Todd McFarlane's art style. There's an element of cartooniness, so nothing's that serious in the violence. It's not like some of the stuff that you see like when we read That Texas Blood or some of those other like hardcore crime stuff that we read or violent stuff.
Yeah.
There is like blood and it looks like blood and people getting their stuff ripped out. It looks real or whatever, you know. But in this, it's kind of like it's kind of like Looney Tunes cartoony, where like he reaches in and grabs his heart, and it's just like bump, bump, you know, like it's kind of funny, but it's tongue in cheek, we'll say. And that's weird to say because we're talking about this rape scene or whatever, the attempted rape. But when I say that, I just mean like there's no nudity in it. It's just she's in peril, and he shows up, and these guys are like, "Oh, a cape! I'm going to kill me a soup," you know. And they say, and I don't know if you caught this, but they're like, it might be one of those Youngbloods. They're talking about Rob Liefeld's comic.
Yes, I did see him Youngblood.
So Youngblood, if you didn't know, is Rob Liefeld's Image book that came out at the same time, and they are a government put together team that are like Squad? They're like Suicide Squad, except they're all celebrities.
Oh, okay.
So that's why he's like they're talking about Youngblood sets the trend setting for their costumes and all that.
That
shit.
even makes it even more sense. Okay.
Yes, because they are like Hollywood government funded, trend setting, superheroes or whatever.
That sounds good.
Whereas Spawn is not that. He's, totally different than that. So they also mentioned Savage Dragon later on. They talk about like, oh, there's that guy in Chi-Town or whatever that's got a fin on his head. I hear he breathes fire or whatever. It's like, oh, they're talking about Savage Dragon. So that's the other thing. Like all these universes were connected at first, and then they slowly weren't. I guess they technically could still be, but they never like connect them after, especially after like they got established. They just kind of like fell away from each other because there was definitely like tension and stuff because you have a bunch of guys who are like, I'm the best artist. No, I'm the best artist. Like all these guys competing for the same sales and the same stuff. But I will say all of the books from Image sold, the first ones sold over 1 million copies.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, especially for nowadays numbers where it's like, I sold 40,000 books. Holy shit, that's like a hit. It's like, it's like, wow, okay, that's good. So anyway, back to this attempted rape scene. We get Spawn beats the shit out of these guys. I like how he beats them up. Did you have any? So it's hard because like I want it to be as action heavy as possible. Did you think were you cheated at all about this? The way he defeats them?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because he does like he just kind of challenges them and then like what we'll take you on, and then he does like this little bitty like spark from his finger, and then it explodes in front of them, and then like holy shit. He's got superpowers. It's like, yeah. I thought you already knew that.
Yeah, he floated down from the sky in this red cape that literally, like, every time he's on the page, the cape takes up, like, probably 2/3 of the rest of the page.
Yes. He's got super cool panel layouts. This. Like, I wish I understood how he did, like, he does really tall vertical panels. Like, panels that are an inch wide, but 14 inches tall. And somehow he fits in all the faces and everything in there.
Yeah, awesome art.
I don't understand how he fits all that information and like everything you need to see in a face and another guy in the background and all the shit that's going on in a tall vertical panel like that. But he does, and I don't understand it. He's like a genius at that shit. But so when he lands and he goes to help the lady up, she's scared at first, and then he has like a flashback sequence where he finally remembers who the lady is. It was his wife, and her name was Wanda. Oh wait, does he remember that yet? I don't know. He just remembers that it's his wife.
He remembers his wife.
Yeah, he just remembers his wife. And then we cut back to what's going on.
It's a slow burn.
Yeah, it's definitely a slow burn for all that. So, and then we cut back to the lady who he was helping, and now he's in her arms because she's like, "Oh, you poor thing, you just like passed out and started like yelling no and stuff. Like you just had like an episode or some shit."
Yeah, I thought that was a fun like duality of like he saves her and then she's kind of like there for him.
Yeah. What did you think of this next part where we get another TV scene where we have the talking heads in the TV boxes? So the first one was in 1987, but they showed Spawn arrive, or they showed Spawn like quickly after that.
Yeah.
But then they jumped to this one, which says 1992, and they're like, "This is what's going on now." So what it is in 1987, that's just when he died, when his funeral happened. But all the stuff that we've seen so far wasn't in 1987. That was in 1992. Like the mobsters being killed, the fight scene he just had, him being like, I don't know what's going on. Because later on, he's like, oh, I've been here for 5 years. Or like, sorry, I was gone for 5 years. A lot has happened since then. So that's 5 years that he's talking about.
Yeah.
But the way that they wrote this, or like the way he shows this as like 1987 to 1992, you would think everything before this panel or this page was in 1987.
Yeah.
And then now it's like 1992.
I think I got that later, especially when he talks to the big bad lady.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you do get it, but it's just weird. Why did he do that like this way? Because it confused the fuck out of me the first time I read it.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, so he's back, but then he wasn't back, and then
he came and then he like took a siesta for a couple.
Yeah, for 5 years. Just he can't. Yeah, I don't get it. But anyway. Then one thing I like is you see the different networks that each person works at. So you see the lady 5 years later, and she's still at CNN. She's working her way up. We see the Alex Jones guy. He's at 2 Today now instead of like My Life or whatever. My Story 2 or whatever. Yeah. So it seems like he's maybe moving up. He's getting popularity. He's on like a regular network, and then the the guy who was on the clone of Entertainment Weekly or whatever is now on the actual Entertainment Network, the E Entertainment Television Network. So they're moving on up. It's been 5 years, so that's good. And this is like so Spawn comes back, and he didn't know who he was, and he never thought to take off his fucking mask or anything before. So this is where we get like, oh, he finally takes off after fighting all those guys and everything. He finally realized, oh, I have like a mask and shit on. I'm going to take that off. And then when he pulls it off, he's like, oh my God, I look all burned and shit.
What am I?
What am I? So yeah, he just doesn't know what he is. He's like all burned up. You know, he doesn't look at all like he did before. They say like he's like, I was black, or you know, like he was, you know, that was his identity and or his racial identity, and like that's a big thing to him apparently, because later on there's something interesting that happens with that that they don't do anymore, which I think is funny. but yeah, we also see like with the setup for the next issue, because we get somewhere someone is laughing, and we see that this guy, this big demon dude, is saying like, Simmons, you think you have problems now? Well, I'll let you know. I promise you, your troubles have just begun. And then it's like, next issue, the Violator. It's like, wait, what? So obviously this is like some demon that he's talking about, or that he's, you know, that's laughing or whatever that's talking about Simmons. So yeah, we're just left kind of like, the murders are going on. Simmons still doesn't know everything about himself. He just knows that he's like a burned guy. He knows there was some kind of deal.
Got some powers, yeah.
He's got powers, and he knows about his wife, but he doesn't know who she is. And then we start issue 2 with the Violator. We get introduced to him on the first page, and that is the clown. The clown's name is Violator. I assume you knew that, or did you put that together?
No. From the movie.
I mean, I know in the movie he says like, they kind of hide it though. They're like, he's clown the whole movie, and then at the end he's like, I'm the Violator, but it's like you could have not understood that was his actual name.
No, I think I did, because I think I had probably seen like toys of it too.
Oh, true, and it'll say Violator.
So I'm pretty sure that I had known that definitely going before into this, and because I specifically also remember there's a scene in the movie where he's like, I'm the Violator.
Yeah.
So
okay, yeah, I didn't know. Like when I was a kid, I did not understand that his name was the Violator. So I just thought, hey, it's the clown. So if you don't know, the clown looks like Danny DeVito, but with like he's got like white face paint on his face that kind of has like an M on his forehead. So he has like a Vegeta hairline.
Majin.
Majin Vegeta. That's what. Yeah, he looks like Majin Vegeta. There you go. But yeah, and he's all dressed in like, you know, shitty clothes and whatever. And first page, you get the first, like the introduction of him is all humor. Like he's talking about like, I'll rip his hide out and then I'll feed it to him and then I'll take his intestines and I'll wrap it around his throat and then he'll know I'm the Violator. Like he's just talking to a cat in an alley.
Yeah.
Like if he's giving like practicing his big speech, or he's trying to like show the cat how badass he is or something.
Yeah, I love because he's talking to the cat because the cat meows. He's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. And so now Spawn, you know, we get cut to him. He's on top of a building like always. And the Violator says like he hates Spawn. We don't know why, but he does. So it turns out that like the reason he's sent there, we'll just kind of skip to some of this because this is all drawn out over like 3 issues. We don't need to draw it out for them. But yeah, so he's here to keep an eye on Spawn for the big bad that's in hell,
and to kind of like coax Spawn to do what they want, what they want him to do, what he's
which if you saw the movie, they want him to lead an army of hell.
Yes,
but they say like, okay, so you have these necroplasm powers.
Necroplasm, yeah.
Is that what it was?
Or I think so. Did I say necroplasm or necro?
It's necro something.
Yeah, necroplasm.
Okay, necroplasm. So he's got these necroplasm powers, and when it runs out, that's when the Armageddon happens, and when the fight for heaven and hell will happen. Or he can prolong that and not use his powers as fast on Earth, but that will make evil be able to rise fast anyway on Earth. Like more bad stuff will start to happen because he's not able to stop it on Earth with his powers. But if he uses his powers, hell will come back sooner. So he's kind of in a catch-22.
Yeah. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
He doesn't know that at the time now. So he's like, I got to find my wife. You know what? I know what I'll do. I will turn myself back into looking like I want to. And then Oh, does he do that right now, or is that the third issue?
It's the third issue.
Oh, okay. I thought it was now. Anyway, he's always on top of a fucking steeple, so I always think I get confused with some of these shots. But anyway, so he knows he needs to find his wife, but he doesn't know how. That's what it is. And he also sees from the top of this building, the clown is waving at him. He's like, that dude looks weird. Why is that clown waving at me? Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, screw that little guy.
Yeah. Anyway, off to the shadows. So then we cut to the Violator, who at another point in time, because we just saw him as the clown trying to get Spawn's attention, but we see him attacking one of these mob bosses, ripping out all the hearts, and we see what he looks like when he's not in clown body. And he looks like, I don't know. What
I mean, that is hard to describe in general, like if you don't.
So
like,
he's all white. We'll say that. We'll start off. He's all white. He's got like a black mask kind of looking face with red eyes that look like fly eyes.
Yeah.
He's got two horns coming out of the side of his face on either side of his jaw.
Kind of like a bull, but pointed down.
They're not pointed down. They're pointed out.
Or I guess out. Yeah,
they're pointed
more
out
like
and
pincers,
forward.
But
Yeah, they're like pincers. There you go. That's what. But he's got a big spike coming off his back that looks like kind of like a crane arm going over his head. And then he's got like really, really skinny arms and legs, but then like a giant torso and neck. So like it's just a very weird design. A lot of people are split on this design, whether they like it or not. I don't care personally, but a lot of artists are like, fuck that design. So
I like it. I think it's fun. I will say I saw a toy of the newer one, and I do like that better.
Oh, like
it's like
super violated.
Yeah,
buff
he's
one?
like super buff. Like that looks cool.
Yes.
But
then we get like another update. We see once again the Alex Jones guy is at a new station. Every time he's somewhere, he's on a new different station. Yeah. Whenever they do these things going on, but yeah, they're just talking about. They're arguing, or we're getting the points of view of these different people about the mob bosses that are being killed. The Alex Jones guy is like, bad guys are killing bad guys. Why do we care? Which is pretty. I was surprised. I was like, that's a pretty.
Well, he did say, and then there's like somebody. Was it Jake Morelli? Is somebody who's in like, I guess with the police or the DA or something, and he's basically a well-dressed suit. But he's a bad guy too, so nothing's being investigated.
Yeah.
Should be if anything.
Yeah, if anything is actually happening, no one's doing anything about it.
Yeah,
and of course the Entertainment News Tonight guy is just talking about what they're wearing, or what Youngblood's wearing. What's going on, and then the CNN lady talks about Wanda Blake, who's the wife of Al Simmons, and I believe is this how he finds out who she is, or no? He has to go to like. Does he find her name out?
I think so. Yeah, he definitely finds her name.
He needs to find out who she is, but I can't remember how he finds out. But either way, that's what it is. Okay, I think either he hears this newscast. I assume we're supposed to know that
he heard it.
That he heard this newscast, or he's like, I need to find her name, and I kind of remember, like, being in this certain
in the neighborhood or something. Yeah.
So he knows he needs to go like find the records. Like where the records of his old house would be kept, like where the address is, so he can go find her and what her name is. So, because he doesn't know her name in this at the beginning, but the main thing that happens here is he's like, oh, I got to walk around in a like public building. Oh, I can't look like this, dress as Spawn or like Crispy, with the costume off. So I got to change back to my human self, and I'll use my powers. Like obviously I can use my powers. Because like right now he doesn't know he can't use his powers. And currently he's at power level 9995, so he hasn't used too much. So he tries that, and he turns into
a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy.
A white guy, and he's like, "What the fuck? I'm not white. I'm a black man. What the hell?" So basically, this is like a joke that the minion or that the bad guy and Violator played on him is. Like you can try to turn back, but you'll not be.
But you won't be you.
Yeah, you won't look like you did, and that's kind of important when you're going to go see your wife and be like, "It's me." It's like you're crazy. Get the fuck away from me if you look like a weird white guy. So, that's what happens basically. And then Sam and Twitch, we see them. They get told not to work the case, and Sam's all pissed off about that because he wants to do a good job, and.
Basically the murders are being of these bad guys are being like claimed in the thing. It's like, oh, that guy had a heart attack.
Yeah, and so like no one's doing anything about it. That's okay. So where he goes, I believe it's like he remembers while he's trying to do this transformation between him. He keeps going back and forth too. He's like, maybe I did it wrong. Black guy, no, white guy. Black guy, come on, black guy. Like he's like, no, and it won't change him into a black guy. So he, while he's doing this, he has another flashback because these just happen randomly where he remembers Win.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, Win will have a file on me.
Yeah.
That's what it was. He doesn't remember his wife's name. He's like, Win will have a file on me, and I will then know what my address is and who my wife is from that file. So he's like, okay, I got to go to the offices of Win and find the file on myself. And it turns out that Violator is actually at that, area. He's in the area of what's going on because Win is a bad guy. So, there's mob bosses being killed and everything, and he's murdering them.
And Violator just like, oh, I'll take your heart.
Yeah, heart. And he's making jokes and shit while he's doing that. But, and then we get the first run-in of Spawn and Violator. But Violator's in his clown body. Spawn had fallen off the roof when he had his flashback about Win. And he's like, oh, man, what's going on? And he falls into an alley, and then he sees this little clown who's like, hey, what's going on? I'll help you out. And then this was the only part that I thought was I actually laughed out loud.
Then he learns his name because he's like, you're the Spawn.
Yeah, he's like, you're the Spawn, as in Hell Spawn. And because Spawn's originally what, like a fish? So, but the part I laughed at is you see in the artwork that Violator's pants have been unzipped. And then in the next page, you see him be like, and another thing, hold on a second. And he zip, and he's like, my bad. So there's actually a scene where he's examines his zipper or whatever. I thought that was funny. But basically, he tells him everything about, Violator tells Spawn everything about himself as far as you're a Hellspawn. I'm here to watch you. I could kill you. No problem. This ain't gonna be hard at all. And then Spawn's like, oh man, screw you. You're crazy.
Yeah,
clown.
what are you talking about? And
then Violator turns into his actual Violator self instead of clown self. And then it says next time, Spawn versus True Violator. So you assume there's going to be a big fight there, but not right away. They kind of he definitely pulls this out a bit more, but we get a whole lot of exposition from the main bad guy. We find out who the main bad guy is in Hell. He's a demon named Malboja. And this is the man or the demon that Simmons made the deal with, and it was a bad deal, of course. But we get all this text. This is an info dump of who this bad guy is, why Simmons was picked. They needed someone with military skills and everything who didn't have too hard of morals, who would go to hell. And he was an atheist. I think that's why he goes to hell too, because Simmons is an atheist. So he's like, now you know it's all real or whatever. It must be hard for you as an atheist and everything. So, but yeah, we just get the whole thing about what was going on in Hell and why this deal happened. And then we see Sam and Twitch are talking, and they're saying oh, no one's doing anything about this. And they're like, what if we went on vacation at the same time and we happened to sit in a car in the area that these killings have been going on and just hang out with some donuts and as buddies do. No one could say we were investigating, because they know their boss doesn't want them to. So basically, they just plan on investigating it whenever they, on their off time, on their vacation time. So then we see Spawn break into the records hall of the CIA, because that's what it's not the Wynn building he works, because Wynn worked for the CIA. So he's like, oh, the CIA will have, stuff on me. And so he goes to look at the files. There's a scene here where Spawn is a helper of women, we'll say. He helps that lady who's getting about to get raped earlier. And then in this office, there's a boss who's like, hey, Toots. It's just a boss and his assistant. They're the only ones left in the building. He's like, oh, you seem tense. Maybe I could give you a little shoulder rub. Or do you need a ride home? We could stop at my house. You can get a nightcap or whatever. He's trying to basically, You know what?
You need a good pat in the behind to let you know you're doing a good job.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And Spawn basically says, you ever touch her again, I'll fucking kill you or whatever. So yeah, we get that. And so then Spawn is back in the alley after he figures out who he is, and he's like, okay, I gotta approach Wanda. He knows now that his wife's name is Wanda. He knows her address. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna go over to her address, and it'll be fine. I'll just have to change into the white guy and somehow convince her that I am me. So he goes there and he knocks on the door, and I thought this was funny. As she opens the door, she's wearing, I don't know, like a fucking wedding gown.
I thought it was a wedding gown, but then like also like super like revealing.
Hell yeah! So
it's
like
very 90s, like
very 90s
whoa.
revealing dress. I mean, the dress itself isn't that revealing, except there's a V cut down the middle where there's like fishnet covering her cleavage down to her belly button. So, that's revealing. But the rest of it's pretty modest. It's
I guess,
floor length dress. But there's also, I don't know if you saw the dog is in this.
Yeah, but I looked at that dog and was like, is that a hell dog? What is up with that fuck dog?
Is so the dog in the movie is named Spaz.
Yeah.
And I think, it makes sense because this dog looks fucking horrific.
This dog looks horrible.
This dog looks like it lived in a trash can with Oscar the Grouch for a very long time.
Yes.
So yeah, he rings the doorbell. She's like, oh, hello, can I help you? And he's like, and he's like kind of taken aback by seeing her for the first time in 5 years. And then he hears like the voice of a child, and he's like, what? And then all of a sudden her daughter comes up and is like, Mama, like I need help. And her daughter is, 15 months, she says, so like, almost a year and a half old. And he's like, hold on, what? Like I thought we couldn't have kids.
Couldn't have.
So it turns out that on top of him being a white guy and everything, she's actually remarried to his best friend.
His best fucking friend.
Named Terry. I don't remember what his last name is.
Yeah, Terry.
Terry is also in the movie, but he's a white guy in the movie. So I don't know.
Yeah, he's black here, but
yeah, he's black guy in this. And so, and then also he's like, wait, so I was the problem? We couldn't have children? Like I wasn't. I was. I don't know what, infertile or whatever.
Shooting blanks.
Yeah, he's shooting blanks. So he not only feels like he's not himself because he's not black and he's this white guy, but he also finds out like I was the reason that we couldn't have kids and she really wanted kids. So he feels like emasculated for that. And then also his best friend is fucking his wife and is married to her. And he's like, what the fuck? And then like, but they're happy together. And it seems like, and they're also like, hey man, like the husband comes, Terry comes and is like, oh, hey, how's it going? White guy. And he's like, he's saying like, oh, I have like magazine subscriptions or something. He's just trying to like talk to her.
Yeah.
At first, just like, I think it's like, would you like to donate to some like foundation or something, some like charity? And then Terry's like comes out and he's like, oh, hey, how's it going, sir? And he's like, oh yeah, like this is my wife. We've only been married for 5 years or whatever, but like, it's her husband died and he's a really good guy and just so you get like he's not backstabbing his best friend. It's like this just happened kind of naturally as they were maybe comforting each other or something. I don't know. But then she's able to have a kid with Terry. So that's like, because of all this, he passes out. And that's like the like, holy shit. And then he has to realize like, I have to leave. Like I can't be like, I'm Al Simmons. Believe me, I'm this white guy. And also I'm here to ruin your
happy marriage.
Your happy family marriage. I said family.
I say family.
Yeah, you're happily
Your happy family.
Happy family marriage. There you go. So yeah, then we get like a no as he like changes back into Spawn in the alley that night.
Yeah,
he's very upset. He's angry, and this is where Violator comes back. And did you notice he's wearing an Image shirt?
Yes.
Violator? Yeah. So he's wearing some Image merch, which was funny. I didn't even know if they had Image merch at this time, but he's wearing it. And so Violator changes back, and he thinks it's hilarious that because he knew that Wanda's remarried.
Yeah, they
made the deal knowing that Spawn was in hell for 5 years, and this had all already happened. So Spawn and Malbolgia and Violator both knew that like Wanda was remarried and happy, and this was going to torment him when he comes back. He can also he can't come back as a black guy; he's got to come back as a white guy. So all kinds of mixed up stuff going on, and this is where like I was like, what? Like the third issue, this happens. Like Violator's like, I'm gonna take you on, and Spawn's all pissed off. He's like, you could try. I'll kick your ass, Violator. And Violator just reaches out like, cha-cha! And just like reaches out and grabs his heart.
Yeah.
Pulls it out of Spawn's chest. And that's the end of the issue. We leave with Spawn falling over with his heart ripped out. And you're like, wow, he killed Spawn in the third issue. I did not see that coming. But don't worry. Fourth issue happens. And it turns out Spawn doesn't need a heart.
Nope.
He fell over out of pain, I guess, or maybe like not realizing that he doesn't need it or something.
Yeah, it just happened so fast.
But it turns out Spawn doesn't need a heart, and he like gets the heart. He uses his necroplasm powers, takes the heart from Violator, puts it in back in his chest, and he heals himself. And he's like, "Ha ha! I have necroplasm powers." And Yeah. So then we see how much power he's drained, though.
Yeah.
From changing to a white guy a bunch of times, and then also doing the heart healing thing. Now he's down to 8,664 power from 9,999. So, it's going down
for
pretty
3
fast.
issues. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. So then there's just a gigantic fight between Violator and Spawn. What do you think about this fight?
I thought it was fun because it was very much like tit for tat and obvious that like neither one is gonna die. So like,
yeah, Spawn blows a hole through Violator. It doesn't kill him. They both rip off each other's arms.
Yeah.
And because they're fighting, Malboja comes in and kind of like has to separate them like a dad or something.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing, kids? And he has to tell them to stop. And that he's very angry at Violator, actually, because Violator is fucking things up. Violator has not only pissed off Spawn, I mean, they want Spawn on their side because he's supposed to lead their army. And so, like, that was part of his punishment is he gets trapped at the end of this issue as the clown. He can't turn back into Violator. So it's like, you're stuck as a fat clown. At least for a while. I'm sure he comes back because,
I'm sure he wins, yeah.
Yeah, but...
wins back his approval.
Yeah, but so Malboja, gives him more fucking exposition dump. And, like, a lot of this is just like, oh, my God. You turn a page and there's, like, almost a book worth of text on these pages. And so that's where he tells Spawn, like, okay, you can choose to not work with us and, not use your powers or use your powers to help people. And that's the sooner you get to hell because your powers run out and the apocalypse starts. So it helps us anyway.
Yeah.
And if you don't use your powers, bad shit we'll just start raising hell around you and you can't fight them because you're trying to save your power. So, bad things will still happen. So pick your poison. Either way, you're fucked. That's basically what he tells
Yeah.
me. So he heals Spawn's arm. He heals Violator's arm. And then, but like I said, he turns Violator back into the clown and says, like, you're stuck like that. So, then we get this fun
classic 90s
classic panel, by the way. So a classic page. So Spawn's like, okay, I can't remember why he's got to go somewhere. Would you remember why he goes? I guess he just goes for a walk. He just goes for a walk. He's like, I can't walk around like this in my Spawn costume. Let me get a fedora and a
big trench coat.
And that'll no one will recognize me.
Just like the Thing or Raphael.
Swamp Thing.
It doesn't matter. You trench coat and a fedora instantly.
No
Who's
one will see
over there?
Yeah, no one will see your necroplasm eyes. Don't worry. So then all of a sudden, as he's walking, and some kids are like, "Oh my God, a superhero!" And he's like, "But how could you recognize me?" And then it turns out that they're pointing at TVs behind him that are in a storefront window, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's Savage Dragon! He's so cool!" And we actually get like an appearance of Savage Dragon on the news. It's pretty awesome. And then they talk about like some young blood characters and how they could beat up Savage Dragon, and the other kid's like, "No way, Savage Dragon broke.
He's so rad."
Yeah, he's so rad. So yeah, pretty awesome. I'll have to say. And then we also see that Wanda at the end of this issue is feeling like she feels like something's back, like something about her husband. She's having nightmares, like a Spawn coming back has awakened memories and
it feels
dreams.
So real. Like there's something different.
She just doesn't know. And then you can see that Terry's a good guy. He's like, "Hey babe, it's only been 5 years. I would never expect you to get over your husband's death that fast, Terry, upstanding guy.
Yeah, really. For real.
And you know what? In the new issues, still an upstanding guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. They don't ruin him.
I mean, I'm sure he's got an arc, but he's still like the moral compass in the story a little bit. So.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And so this is where the thing happens. All right. Up until this point, Todd McFarlane has written and drew. This is the story he meant to write, right? So issue 5 was originally solicited in Wizard magazine, for all those of you who remember that, as a completely different story than this one that actually came out. So I don't know what the story was. I didn't read the Wizard magazine article, but it wasn't this story that we see. And the reason why is because an Alan Moore story in issue, I think 9 or 10 or something, whatever issue Alan Moore wrote, he wanted to write a story that took place in hell, and he needed to have someone in hell that like connected to Spawn. So that's why we get this story about a serial child killer who, an ice cream man who murders kids because this guy ends up in hell for that story. So he's setting up Alan Moore's story of this is the guy you see in that issue.
I wondered, like, I was like, okay, you know, I get that he's helping people, but it definitely, I was like, where is this serial killer from? Like, he's cool. It's very, well, not, you know, cool as a serial killer.
He's awesome.
You know, just like that new Dahmer show. Like, oh man, he's so hot.
Jesus.
It's so stupid. But yeah, it's very like kind of John Wayne Gacy-esque. Very
very John Wayne Gacy, except with children.
Yeah,
I could see if you were reading Spawn and your parents were okay with what was going on in those ones. I could see your parents being like, "What the fuck is this?" Because the level of violence definitely amps up, even though it's cartoony.
Oh yeah,
it's creepy as fuck. So there's a guy named Billy Kincaid. We're introduced to him on the first page. He is the son of a senator or something like that, son of someone powerful. He is a child murderer who would drive around in an ice cream truck, kidnap kids, murder them. They said he's killed 15 or 17 kids, something like that, a high amount. But he was only caught for one of them, and he got off. Or he's like,
see, he was sentenced to 22 years. Then his lawyer worked the system somehow.
Yeah, got it down to 5 years, but then at an asylum or something.
Because he had such good behavior.
Yeah, and this is Bleeding Heart psychiatrist was like, no, he's fully rehabilitated. You can let him out. So he gets let out on parole because the psychiatrist believes that he is rehabilitated. So Billy Kincaid, who we should describe as a very, very large man, some might say portly.
Yes.
He definitely has a flavor saver. What is that called?
Wow. a goatee.
A soul patch.
Soul patch goatee.
It's not goatee.
It's a soul patch goatee.
Okay.
It's a type of goatee.
But it's very interesting because it goes not only down his one chin, but it ends all the way onto his second chin.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting design, I think.
And it's pointy.
It's a pointy one.
Point.
That's how you know he's evil. But he also looks evil. But
yeah. He kind of looks like the Kingpin a little bit, or
a little bit.
Well, just because again his big size.
So we see Kincaid is getting, he's talking to a psychiatrist. His psychiatrist's like, "Oh, good news, you're getting out on early parole for good behavior because you're awesome." And then we get a whole recap of what Billy did, and it is fucked up. Just him driving with ice cream cones. Or ice cream truck, giving kids hey, you want some ice cream in the back of the truck?
Come on,
and then you see him shove a kid into a freezer.
Yeah. You scream ice cream, we all scream for ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just super fucked up. So Sam and Twitch are at this parole meeting, and they're all pissed off that he's getting off on early let out or whatever. So they're on the beat, and then also we get the newscasters saying how horrible or how. I guess all of them are saying how horrible it is.
Yeah.
The CNN one is just saying this is happening. Then the entertainment guy is saying what are the steamy details between Wanda and her ex-husband's best friend that are now married? So they're getting the dirt on Wanda for some reason, they're salacious or whatever, right? And then, but we saw how good Terry is as a guy, so
it's not
there's no real story there. And then we get the Alex Jones, once again, he's at a new network, and it's surprise, surprise, kitty killer Kincaid is free. The government doesn't care about these pedophiles or whatever. Once again, calling Alex Jones to a T. So I did like this. I don't know if you know the character Shadowhawk.
Mm.
Shadowhawk was another of the original Image guys. It was Jim Valentino's book. I never read it, but I do know the gimmick of this guy. He is a vigilante hero who looks kind of like a black version, a blacked out Wolverine costume.
Okay. So
not yellow and blue or whatever, but he's black, all black and silver. That's his thing. Kind of looks like Moon Knight and Wolverine put together.
Okay.
But what he does is he goes around and he breaks criminals' backs.
Oh.
That is what he does. So he walks around and just punches them in their spine and breaks their spines.
Nice.
So they can't walk anymore and commit crimes. So it's hopefully he didn't steal some gum because fucking Nighthawk's coming. Or Shadowhawk's coming.
Shadowhawk is going to kill him.
So yeah, that's what this guy says.
Break his back.
Yeah, the Alex Jones guy says, I hope he breaks his back. And so yeah, that's the main thing is we're seeing what's going on with Kincaid. We're seeing Sam and Twitch now switch their surveillance that they were kind of doing after hours to Billy Kincaid because we got to catch this fucker.
Yeah.
We can't let him watch or hurt kids or whatever.
Yeah, there's no way he's rehabilitated. He's going to do it again.
Yeah. And so we get Kincaid the next day.
It's 2 days
2 days later. 2 days later.
2 days later.
Yeah.
He took a day to rest and sleep.
Yeah. He took a day to buy the new ice cream truck.
Yeah.
So he's already got an ice cream shop. He's already going around, and he gets his first fucking victim in the second day. So this little girl comes up. He's like, "Ooh, ice cream." He's like, "Oh, you want a special cone in the back over here?" And then the next panel we see is him gluing children's fingers. So I guess all of her fingers.
I assumed hers or a couple kids. Maybe he got a couple others. But I love this. He's like in his house and he's like, "Oh, I just love finger painting." And then he fucking has the fingers on
gluing them to a piece of paper.
Oh my God, that's so creepy.
And it's like stained with blood. Also, he's dressed up kind of like a Leatherface. You know, like he's got like a wig on that looks like the little girl. He's putting on like pearls and a dress, and so very, very creepy. And then we see that Spawn has been watching. I don't know if it's because of Kincaid being out, but maybe he just wants to keep an eye and watch Wanda and the daughter, because he's still like obviously infatuated with her. It's his wife. He loves her, but he's just kind of pining over her from a distance, which isn't creepy at all. But also we see that Kincaid's killing children, so that might also be why he's watching.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously I'm sure he gets the news too, because he's sees other people.
We also get a scene where we see how shitty the police are in general, because the police are doing something. They don't even say what. They drive through an alley to take a shortcut, and they end up running over a homeless man and killing him, because the homeless guy was sleeping in the alley, and they just everybody get out of the way, and then and then ran over a guy. So didn't even notice. And so like, and then nothing happens to them at all. They just get off scot-free. And so that's like one of the things the homeless people are like, these cops get away with killing our buddy, but like they let these kid killers out, and they hold up a newspaper. So so somehow Spawn gets word of this Kincaid fellow, and he's like, what? There's this like kid killer out there. Like, I think I can take on this guy and do some good. So he looks up where this guy is, and Sam and Twitch are waiting outside of Kincaid's house, waiting for him to do something. And then we see Spawn go through the window, and they're like, wait, did you see something? It's like, I think so. Quick, someone burst in there. And they also think that Spawn is the guy going around killing bad guys.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, he's going in there to kill Kincaid, but we want to arrest him, before he does anything. So they run in, and when they run in, like, we cut to Spawn and Billy fighting. There's like this scene where Billy's like, oh, I think I'll take on, you won't be any trouble, or where he pulls out a knife. And then he's about to kill a kid. That was the other thing. Like, Spawn bursts in as he's about to like kill another kid. It wasn't his kid, right?
No. I think that he just has a flash of his kid.
Okay.
Or
I guess Spawn as he's breaking in, sees him about to kill a kid, and he's like, "Oh my God,
that could have been
could have been my girl or whatever." So, I guess,
I mean, his family,
Yes.
technically.
And then he breaks in, and then Sam and Twitch break in quickly after that, and we cut to them breaking in, and now there's all this evidence of kids that have been killed throughout the day. So they're like, "Okay, he definitely killed children in here. Great." I'm like, how did they not see him?
I thought they were casing him.
And maybe he's got like a back door or something in a garage that he parked in. Maybe. Who knows? But as they open one of the bedrooms of this house, they find one of the most iconic images of this series that I can think of. It is Kincaid naked, strung up with a bunch of chains like Hellraiser, and there's a paper or a piece of paper pinned to his chest with popsicle sticks and an ice cream scoop that are sticking into his chest that say "boys screamed and girls screamed, so I made him scream and scream
and scream." Yeah.
And so Sam runs into the room and sees that, and that's the end of that issue. So that was like a big tone change for the series, and I think a well-needed one. I felt like when I hit that, I was like, okay, this is needed. This is very interesting.
Yeah, because I get that he's trying to figure out like who he was and like all of it, like his past still. But we didn't. It's like I'm assuming at some point he has to get more to the story than that.
Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting that very important issue that like, oh, it's picking up, something interesting's happening, was the issue he had to make up like in a week just to like lead into what Alan Moore was doing.
Oh, so that's what you're saying. Oh, okay. I didn't even think of it in that aspect. Like he literally was like, oh crap, can't be that. So
yes, and he had to draw it too. So like,
wow, okay,
yeah, he's the artist and the writer on these issues.
Yeah,
so he had to, like, he's talking to Alan Moore. He's like, I'm going to hire you for like issue 10 or 12. What do you want to do? And he's like, I want to do a story in hell. Like, and he's like, I want like a really bad guy to like be in there and lead us in or whatever. That's my shitty Alan Moore accent. And then, so Todd's like, oh, okay. Like, you know, and I'm assuming because this is such a different tone that maybe Alan Moore gave him a little ideas to like, you know, some prompts. He gave him some prompts to help him out, you know? So yeah. And he definitely wanted him to be a bad guy, you know? So,
you can't. What's worse than a rapist? A
child killer / rapist.
A child, yeah.
So yeah, and then the 6 issues is kind of following up of the storyline between the mob bosses thinking that Spawn is killing all of them and ripping out their hearts. So they hire a guy named Overt Kill. I got a funny story about this guy who's like a cyborg guy that's like big and he's indestructible and he fights Spawn and you know
there's explosions and and he gets the upper hand on Spawn a bit too. Like he definitely is like
he's definitely a challenge.
Yeah,
I will say later on he's actually a friend of Spawn's. Like,
nice.
Like in these later issues they're like team up buddies. So something happens in between this issue and issue 300 where
we should point out we're in issue 6 and he's at 8092 of power. So like
he went down
1,000 within just a couple. So like it seems like this could happen pretty soon.
Yeah. So and this is all we get like a little bit more about his powers. Like this is the first time we see his chains shoot out on their own, like Hellraiser style, against Overkill and stuff. So you know it was like a good issue. It was like it was fun. If I read this when I was a kid, I'd be totally into it. It was fun.
Yeah.
The story, the like main story of the first 4 issues, that could have been 2 issues probably though. Like he drug it out a little bit, I will say. But yeah, so this is just about like the mob bosses saying we want to kill Spawn. They hire this guy named Overt Kill, and that's it. They fight.
Yeah,
they have a big fight.
It's a several page long fight.
Yeah, like this is actually the fight that I wanted between Violator and him. I felt like the Violator one wasn't quite as big and bombastic as it could have been.
I still liked it because, like you said, it seemed like they can't neither could beat each other, so that's part of the reason why. Because
they end up not being able to in that one not being able to beat each other, so they're more evenly matched, I guess. But also in this one, this is where we find out at the end why Spawn uses guns. There's always pictures of Spawn with guns, and he's got powers. Why? Because he's got a power meter, and he can't use it, or else the apocalypse will come. So now he's like, why would I use powers when I could just shoot bad guys or whatever? Unless they're super powered like this Overt Kill guy.
Yeah,
that's why he needed to use his power, and that's what brought it, in there. So, and that's the end of the first 6 issues of Spawn. Now I will say, so Overt Kill, it's a weird name, right?
Yeah,
it should be Overkill. You think, right?
Exactly. That's what I thought.
There's a reason for it, and that reason is there's when Rob Liefeld and Tom worked for Marvel, there's a video series that Stan Lee would do that was called Marvel Creations or something like that, and it was like you could buy these videos. They solicited them in comic books, and you could buy the VHSs of them, and it was just like Stan talking to creators and them drawing at the same time, and he's like, "So what are you drawing here, and why do you draw it like that?" Just getting in the heads of these artists.
Yeah.
So he's talking to Stan Lee is talking to Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane, and he's like, why don't we just start freehanding it or whatever? He's like, okay. So Rob Liefeld takes the feet or one side of Overt Kill, and Todd McFarlane takes the other side, and they are going to meet in the middle or whatever. So that's where he says kids love spikes or whatever. They're just like, oh, he loves the robot arms and all this stuff. And he's talking like that, and then you see him start to write the name of the character, and it's Overkill. And I think they couldn't use Overkill because they drew him in that Marvel thing, and I'm assuming Marvel owns.
It automatically became copyrighted.
Yeah. Kind of like if you do work at a company.
Oh yeah, they're like, oh, did you have some ideas? Let us know. Those are our ideas.
Also, or just if you use your work laptop to do any work that's not a work project, they own it or something. So did you email your friend about it from your work email address? Well, guess what? We own all of that now. So that's basically what I'm assuming is what it kind of was. So they just changed the name to Overt Kill, which I thought was ridiculous, but it makes sense. They had to do it, and it still works as a name. It's still a little weird, but whatever. What else? Oh,
There's one thing I wanted to say specifically because I was comparing a little bit, obviously, as we went along.
Yeah.
Way better than the movie, like 100 times better.
Yes.
And the things in the movie, like, that were good, like John Leguizamo definitely got the clown to a T. Like, he was very, like,
yeah, I feel like he was even more humorous in a different way. He was more silly in the movie, but it worked for the movie. In this, he's cartoonish, but there's like an evil... There's like, I don't know, something else behind it, a little bit more mean or something.
Yeah, he's kind of... I'll give him that. The movie is a little more Beetlejuicy.
Yes. So
I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But still, like, it still felt very, like it seemed like John Leguizamo, like, read some of the comics probably and was like, I'm going to, I can picture some of this.
I don't think anybody read any of the comics back then. They're just like, what is this bullshit? All right, go.
I don't know. John Leguizamo was a method
I feel like
actor
they
too,
used John Leguizamo for a reason because they're like, we need this character to be funny. Just ad lib.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay, that's true too.
I feel like that's what we wanted. Just like Genie and Aladdin, they're like, no
Robin
one
Williams
wrote that dialogue. Robin Williams was like, like it's just all.
Yeah.
No one wrote any of that dialogue. He just went off and it was funny. So.
But there's one character specifically I remembered from the movie that I noticed was. Well, not Spaz. It's not Spaz. And I am very sad he didn't call him Crispy.
Yeah.
The entire time, because that's like one of my.
He does later on. I don't know.
That's one of my favorite lines from the movie. Bad Crispy. He's like tries to show up at his daughter's birthday party.
Yeah.
Anyway, there is the like angel, or it used to be a Hellspawn character, the old man.
Oh yes, this is why we're Cagliostro.
Cagliostro, yes.
Who is the narrator of the movie, right?
Okay,
he's like
kind of like
he's the narrator / guy who shows up to help Spawn.
He's the whistler /
there you
go. Giles.
Yes, Giles. There you go. He's the Watcher or something.
Yeah.
So Cagliostro is a creation of Neil Gaiman from the issue that he wrote.
Oh,
because Neil Gaiman had Medieval Spawn in his issue, which is also a creation of Neil Gaiman. So if you didn't know, this created a whole bunch of tension between Neil Gaiman and Todd McFarlane. So Todd McFarlane, I guess, they never had contracts. He was just like, hey, you want to write for me, bud? I'll give you $100,000. He's like, okay. Good enough for me. They didn't even handshake because they wrote like across the pond or whatever. He's in England. And so like, from what I understand, it was just like, he just said like, I'll treat you better than whatever your contract is for DC for Sandman. And he's like, okay, without looking at the contract for Sandman, which says if you create characters, you get a piece of those characters. And that's why Neil Gaiman still has a piece of all those Sandman characters and makes money from every trade, every TV show, any licensing of any of that shit. He owns a piece of a lot of those characters. So, cut to like 5 years after that issue's written, and they're making an Angela miniseries. And Angela is an angel that hunts Hellspawn. That was put in that issue as well. And so Neil Gaiman created this angel that's hunting Hellspawn named Angela. There's a miniseries that's being written that he's not getting any money for, but he should because he created that character according to his DC contract, which is what Todd McFarlane said he would match. So he's like, what the fuck? And then also toys are coming out for Angela.
Yeah.
And Angela's in the TV show, I think.
And I know I was like, I remember Medieval Spawn figures.
Yes, Medieval Spawn figures and all this stuff. So all of this starts happening. And there's a lawsuit that goes on for years. Like 10, like
you almost said hundreds of years.
It might as well have been 100 years because it was going on when I was at the comic book store. It was going on until about 2015, I think it got.
Holy
fixed.
Crap.
So for 20 years, this like lawsuit went on.
How does a lawsuit even go? Like that isn't even my brain can't
I don't know.
process.
I don't know. But because there's no contract, right? There's no
that's
contract.
so much money that you're paying them too.
Right.
Your lawyers.
Yes.
Oh my God.
John McFarlane has enough money to spare because he was smart and made a toy company that was very, very, very successful.
That's true.
So, he's not doing bad or anything. But, he wanted the rights to Angela and all that stuff. So part of that was he bought a company called Eclipse where he got the rights to Miracle Man, which we did all the books for Miracle Man.
Yeah.
Alan Moore creation and everything. So Neil Gaiman was offered, I guess when Neil Gaiman won, because eventually Neil Gaiman won the rights to his character, Angela. Mm-hmm. And I think Medieval Spawn was given to Todd, but he had to pay Neil or something like that. And then Miracle Man was given to Todd to Neil Gaiman as well. And that's why Miracle Man is now a Marvel property, and so is Angela, because Neil Gaiman sold them to Marvel. Nice. Or gave them, I don't know, something happened where he
got some money for him from Marvel.
So that is why, that is like this whole fucking thing.
Huh.
I listened to Cartoonist Kayfabe read all the courtroom transcripts of that court case.
Oh my gosh.
It is fantastic to hear Todd McFarlane talk, and then hear someone like Neil Gaiman, who's very loquacious, talk, and then like Todd be like, I don't know, bud, I said I would give him $100,000, and that's it. You know, like, it's like, wow, okay. You know, like they really didn't have any plan. They were just kind of artists going like, how does $100,000 sound? It sounds good to me. Like, should I send a contract? It's like, nah, it's fine. We'll just, we're not going to fuck each other over. We're buddies or whatever, you know, and like then turn into a 20-year lawsuit.
Good Lord.
So, you know, just a word of wise, you know, you can be a good business friend or whatever and still sign contracts. And,
yeah,
you know, it's good to know what's going on. So, yeah, that was like a whole thing that happened. And
always get it in writing, no matter what it is.
Always get it in writing. Never let anybody sign your checks. Yeah. That's a little heavyweight reference for you guys. Yeah, so that is the end of Spawn. That I know I went into a bunch of history because this is just such a fascinating series with all that like side stuff going on. I've never read the issues that Frank Miller or anybody else wrote, so I want to read that stuff too. But so John, what did you think? What would you give it?
I'm gonna go my little extra piece of history too, real fast too, that I looked at because I was curious. Because they say, you know, God specifically in hell and stuff, and I was like, well, you know, what is Malboja? Because I'd never heard that name,
right?
As opposed, you know, like with all of the biblical references to,
right,
you know, Beelzebub or Lucifer or whatever,
right? Azazel,
yeah. And so it's actually from Dante's Inferno. There's Bolge, which is the eighth level,
circle of hell.
Yeah, eighth circle of hell, which is where Malboja reigns.
Okay.
In this, and that's where it came from.
Well, there you go.
And he is not one of the like high demons or whatever. He's not the devil. There is, I guess, later on.
I figured that he is much bigger than like Violator, so I assume he's like high ranking.
Yeah,
but he's not the devil. So
well, it's amazing the levels and like.
I do like his Jerry curl. He's got a Jerry curl.
He does. He's got a big mane of hair.
Yeah,
just on his head.
Looks like he's uses Soul Glow or something.
Yeah, it's very 80s, like
yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah. So, but you were saying what I think of it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Like you said, way better than the movie.
90s kid in you.
Yeah, I mean, then maybe that's part of it. But like, no, like it was fun, even with it being dragged out a bit. Like I still was like, and I mean, again, I guess probably because I had a little bit of the background of like because the movie had just hit some of those story notes, but I still was like, oh, this is like. Spawn is cool looking. He definitely like why does he have these powers? What is going on with him? Like and like trying to get to the root of that. It was fun.
Yeah.
And like you said, the art, every page, like there's no like even the background art looks great on this. Nothing is like half-assed or like rushed in these comics.
If there is a background, it is not half-assed. I will say a lot of the panels don't have backgrounds because
Spawn's cape is in them.
Yeah. Well, and also like you spend all that time drawing such a detailed character, and then you're like, fuck, you know, or like, you know, I'm not going to put anything in the background except color or whatever, you know. Yeah. So they do that in Marvel though, which isn't even, you know, like the regular two that don't have as good as art as that do that all the time. So it's like, well, fuck it, you know, I'll do that anyway. So, what would you give it, John?
I liked it a lot. I totally would read more. I'm down to dive into the Spawnverse. If y'all like this, let us know. Maybe we'll read the next one or the next like highly written.
I think the next volume would be cool because it's going to be about like Frank Miller, all those people, like Neil Gaiman.
Oh yeah, we probably should then. So yeah, you guys let us know. I'm going to give this a solid 7. Like this is 7. A fun comic. The art is fantastic. I wasn't bored. I enjoyed it. It was a fast read actually for me.
Yeah, so. It's a really fast read. The only times you get slowed down is when he's doing the Malboja exposition dump, and then the TV heads. That's just a page of text almost with 3 TV heads. Yeah. So, you know, those are the only slowdown moments, but they're all kind of if you just accept them, and go with it.
Well,
it's funny.
The heads are fun because because it's 3 different dialogues about it.
3 different points of view of the same thing happening.
Counterpoint.
Yes, but also Alex Jones' points, which is interesting. So I there's a lot of interesting stuff and historical like comic book stuff in this that I love. So there is an asterisk probably with this for me because like 90s kid here, I love Todd McFarlane's arts, like everything. I don't even care about Spider-Man, and I own the omnibus of Tom McFarlane's stuff because I like Tom McFarlane art so much. So like, and also like Tom McFarlane like as a guy, like I think he's a pretty fucking awesome creator and like you know just badass all around as far as how do you make like an empire of comic books and toys and then you bring back Spawn at issue 300 and make it a number like selling 100,000 copies again from selling like 10,000 copies. So like he brought it out of like only like the diehard Spawn kids that like bought issue 1 back in the day are buying it 3 years ago, and then issue 300 comes out and he makes it a number 1 seller again on top 10 list.
That's crazy.
Selling above 100,000 issues. So
he's George Lucasing it.
Exactly. So and it stayed good. I've read it for 30 issues now, and I'm enjoying it. It definitely has, you know, some like story stuff, and I'm like, if this was a more modern comic, it would move a little bit differently. He definitely likes to drag. He likes to pull the taffy, as they call it. You know, just like this story. It took 4 issues to figure out like who I am.
Who am I?
Yeah, what's going on, and then all of a sudden you get the Kincaid issue. It's like fuck yeah, and that happens a lot in the new series too, or like the more recent stuff, where like you're pulling taffy on these ideas. And you're like, whoa, okay, like he was going here, he's going there, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, there'll be an issue that's like, holy fuck, that was awesome. And then start pulling the taffy again. Like, so I like it. It's just, you know, I want it to get somewhere. You know, I feel like this series definitely has a lot of that taffy pulling, but I think it's good. So just for the art, I would give this a 7, like on its own. If you're going to grade it on story as well, I would give it like a 6.5. But if you're a 90s kid, it'll still be a 7 with the story, I feel. So, like, or if you're, like, just only read comics from nowadays and you're like, I want to read a different type of story. Because also, he still writes it this way because he still writes Spawn. He's still writing it, like, the main scripts of it and stuff. And he still writes Gunslinger Spawn completely. So, like, he does the full script and everything for that in the story.
Oh, nice.
On some of them, I think he just plots them out, like, for people. It's like, oh, this is what I want to happen here or there. But, he does this thing where there's a lot of narration that's telling you what's going on in like Spawn's thoughts and what's happening in a panel that it's a static image of Spawn being like, whoa, like flying across. And it's like, as Spawn flies across his, you know, he feels his knife fall out of his, you know, sheath. And it's like, it fills in stuff. And that's not how people write nowadays. And some people say that's lazy writing, but because it's like the only book that's doing it, I'm like, no, it's like, this feels like the 90s to me. Like, we're just going to like have pretty pictures, and sometimes we need to fill in the story with these dialogue or these narration boxes.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that. I don't mind it because it's kind of different feel and fringe stuff nowadays. So yeah, we'll give it an asterisk. It's a 6 for me, but I feel like it's a 7 for me personally. Like, but it might not be for everybody. So with that, John, what are we reading next week to kick off our October Halloween Fest?
Yes, this is always our favorite time for doing comics. We always get in some really weird ones. There's some really like, you know, creepy ones that we don't normally do for the rest of the year. And so this next week, we're kind of tying up. We have the new Hellraiser coming out on Hulu, which we're both very excited for.
Yes.
And so we're going to do the Hellraiser, the first omnibus?
It's the first omnibus from Boom.
Okay.
So this was the relaunch. I think that started in 2011 or 12 it's like the first real series of Hellraiser. Because before this, there was like stuff in the 90s that would come out, but it'd be like a little one shots or 3-issue miniseries. But this is like, we're going to make a story arc. And I heard good things. I did not buy it when it was coming out because I just didn't have the money for it. And it was like, I think it was $4.99 then or something. So it was a pretty expensive book. So I'm excited to get into it. It is, from what I understand, the actual, like the Doug Bradley Pinhead and all that. So
nice.
We'll see what happens. But we're going to read the first, the omnibus is 12 issues or 20 issues. So we're only going to read like the first story arc, whatever that is, 6 issues or whatever. So check that out if you want to, you know, read it before we spoil it. But Yeah, and you can get that on Hoopla. We got it for free on Hoopla. So
yeah, get your library card.
Yeah.
Support libraries, and then in turn, you can read your comics that way too. Sometimes.
There you go. So with that being said, remember we got our Patreon. If you would like to vote on what we're doing, we're going to do. You guys vote for one of these horror books, like we said. That's going to be one of the newer horror titles that have come out. So if you would like to get in on that vote for this month, definitely check out our Patreon at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And yeah, well, I also have a Hellblazer miniseries that's going up, or Hellblazer Matt's mini series that's going out there, where I'm reading every issue of Hellblazer along like I do with the Swamp Thing, and they're going concurrently. So they're at the same point in time as I'm reading them together. Now, if you go back and listen to them, they won't be. You can listen to them out of order or whatever. But like as of right now, they're like together the same month they came out or close to that. I think I'm like maybe one off, but it doesn't matter. But like yeah, so I'm very excited that that's continuing. We're at issue 40, which is the very end of the Jamie Delano run and the beginning of the Garth Ennis run, which is the fucking best run.
Yeah.
So or one of the best. There's a lot of good Hellblazer out there. So. Yeah.
I love that you always do that with your favorite characters. You're like, oh man, this is the best run. Well, there are so many good runs of Spawn or Swamp Thing. But this is I'm sorry.
I don't know. I can't help it. It's fucking good.
I know. It's just fun.
Yeah. So yeah, if you would like to listen to that and get those exclusive episodes, you can check those out. But we are releasing them for free on the regular podcast, but we're doing it bi-monthly, so twice a month. And they're going to be always at least 30 issues behind wherever I'm at in the actual like Patreon. So if you listen to those and you're like, I need to know what happens to John Constantine in Hellblazer, what the fuck? You can jump on the web,
sign up for that Patreon.
Sign up for Patreon and get all access to all that stuff. So with that, we will see you on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.